hard to argue with your conscience when it's trying to have a cameo appearance in your speech. So okay, here's the truth. And besides, Booth said we had to talk about failure, so I guess I was set up for this to begin with. I dropped out of college when I was 19 years old. After entering Delhi University as a freshman, I could usually be found on the lawn outside the cafeteria with my band Graffiti, or as Americans say, graffiti. I spent more time at music festivals, street theater, and political demonstrations than I ever did in class. And when I took the second year exams, the results of my dilettante ways were clear for all the world to see. Posted there in the wood-framed bulletin boards in our college corridors. Kavita Ramdas, Poli-Sci, second year, BA Honours, failed. This is not the nice middle-class Indian girl storyline. We are supposed to study hard, excel at what we do, preferably in math and science, and go on to marry well and live happily ever after. We are not supposed to have nervous breakdowns in the middle of our exams. Be sent off for psychological counseling, and then, horror of horrors, drop clean out of college, which is what I did. I put up a very brave front, but really, I felt miserable. About failing my exams, about what my peers thought, but even worse, about having failed my parents and failed my own expectations. I sunk into deep despair, convinced that I should simply cease to exist. Annoyingly, my body seemed determined to disregard these wishes and reached out to devour every passing samosa and chicken tikka with extreme relish. I spent 2 months morosely writing about how all I wanted to do was to marry the bass player in my band, not a chance, or to save the world, slightly better odds. Then my mother, a long-time activist, had it. She made me sit up, brush my hair, and go out into the world. You want to save the world, she said? How about you first take a look at the world? So I was volunteered into service, first at a local orphanage. I sobered up pretty quickly. I learned firsthand about the discrimination that girls in India experience. As I watched nurses bring in little babies, sometimes with placentas still on them, all of them girls, abandoned by mothers too poor and too frightened to cope with another girl child, in families where girls were seen as nothing more than a burden. This was followed by more extreme exposure. After having spent most of my life in some of the biggest cities in the world, I was a bona fide city girl. My mother decided I needed to learn about rural India. I was delighted. This was the real stuff. Now I would be in solidarity with the grassroots, with the peasants, with the real people of my country. Well, nothing prepared me for the solidarity of waking up at 4 in the morning to walk with women to go use the fields, which were the only bathrooms. And nothing I had seen until then helped me understand a world in which young women were expected never to raise their voices, not to voice an opinion of any kind, to cook and clean and serve every meal in the family before they ate, to give up their dreams of school, and to choke and cry as they prepared meals over a smoky fire. I was shocked by how much worse the plight of women was in these villages compared to what my experiences of discrimination had been. But I was also sure I had now found my true calling. I was going to live here, with the women who live at the very bottom of the pyramid of life in rural India. I was going to suffer alongside of them and live amongst the people whose incredible courage and resilience was so inspiring. I was going to transform my life, shed my middle-class bourgeois ways, and dedicate myself to service. So there I was, Epiphany Complete, a very tall, middle-class Indian girl who dropped out of college. Do you think Jan Holmgren had this shortened on purpose? A very tall Indian woman who dropped out of college, offering up my labor in any way that I thought would be useful to the villagers. I was heady with purpose. Know that feeling? Have a feeling like that right now? Heady with purpose? A little bit of a mix between Mother Teresa and Madonna. One afternoon, we were in the open angan or courtyard in the house that I was living in, and all the women were busy channowing the wheat, or winnowing the wheat. They use flat baskets to toss up the grain, and the chaff blows away and the seeds are supposed to fall back into the basket. Girls learn this from such an early age that by 10 or 12 they're experts. As always, I was eager to be of help and begged for a basket of my own. And with the hospitality and good humor that I have since seen in villages from Senegal to Nepal, I was handed one. I hardly noticed the giggles and titters that surrounded me as most of the pile ended up on the floor. I was much too intent on fulfilling the task at hand. Then I heard, "Beti, are beti," which means daughter. I stopped because Chacha Ji, the old toothless man on the charpoy on the bed behind us, was asking for me. "Can you tell me again why you have come here?" he asked. "I've come to help you," I said. "I've come to live your life. I've come to be part of this." He smiled at me and in the kindest, gentlest way, he said, "Beti, you can live here for many, many years, but you are unlikely to get better at this. Or at all the other things women in our community can do so well in our homes and on our fields. You know, my granddaughter, she dreams of being able to go to school. And you have been to school, no? You can read, you can write, you can even speak in big places because you know English. You really want to help us? Then use your education. Use the abilities to tell people about Jargaha, our village, about the landlords who deprive us of our fair share of the harvest year after year, about the schools where there is no school teacher, about the local clinic that has no medicines for malaria. Give thanks for your education and use it. Use it for us. Don't forget us. But you cannot help us for trying to be just like us. I listened with my mouth open and tears running down my face. Those words and that experience of living with that family in a village did change my life by making me realize how easy it is to devalue what you do have. I repeated my second year exams to complete college, and while I did so, I also applied for and received admission and a scholarship to study at a women's college far away in South Hadley, Massachusetts, called Mount Holyoke. I believe a certain founder of Mills College once studied at that alma mater. The goddess does work in mysterious ways. And so it came to be that I, like you, benefited from a world-class institution at a very special place. A world-class education, at a very special place, a women's college. Because of your education, whether you are women or men, you know that we live in a world that continues to be profoundly unequal in terms of gender relations.